Today, the topic is the daily meeting, the daily stand-up, and we have our own in-house Agile order, Tim Ottinger, with us to talk about it. Welcome, Tim.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all online. Happy to share an interesting topic. So, the daily meeting is a thing that I know a lot of people, um, they really focus on the idea of running an effective stand-up meeting or an effective daily scrum. And I think that's fine. Um, you have to think, what does effective mean? And what's the purpose of the meeting? And it started evolving into uselessness. I think that I don't hear people complain about anything else as often as they do about the morning meetings. I think it's probably consistent for most of the people here. Are you hearing me okay?
Yep, loud and
Yes,
clear.
perfect.
Okay. So, of course, the obsession on running an effective stand-up generally means exactly 15 minutes or less. Um, Nobody complains, and you don't do any actual work in the meeting, which is, I think, an odd thing. Um, but in that, we have this issue with the 15-minute limit. It gives us some cognitive dissonance, right? So, two different mindsets. A performance mindset says, okay, well, we're interested in what we're doing, what we get out of it, how it helps us. And that says, okay, this meeting is, we're told, crucial. It's an important meeting that we must have every day. And yet, we want to get it over with in 15 minutes so we don't waste any unnecessary time on it. And that seems cognitive dissonance to me, right? It's really important, so let's don't waste any time on it. And that's just sort of an odd point of view. By the way, there's another mindset that is about rule following and conformance, and there's no cognitive dissonance to them. We do it because it's part of the process, and it's limited to 15 minutes because it's part of the process. End of thought. We have completed, we've met our rules, we're done. Have you seen this? You all are very quiet.
Oh,
Hey, I was just sharing the space. So, Jay, why don't you lead the conversation? And I'm just gonna share and invite some people over to the space. So, go on.
sure. And just as a reminder to everyone that's listening, if you would like to answer a question, ask a question, share a thought, your own insight or observations about the topic, feel free to raise your hand, and myself or Manib will pull you up to the stage to be able to speak and interact. And if you're joining from a laptop and you can't join and you can't dial in or join as a speaker, then feel free to tweet us the question, and we'll make sure that it's addressed in the room. But Tim, no, I think that's that idea of cognitive dissonance when it comes to something being so important. However, you don't want to waste any more time doing it. Is a great point. And I'd like to think, altruistically, right, that these meetings are being set up out of a legitimate need for an exchange of information. And so, I guess from your experience, do you feel like they're starting out being used the wrong way, or are they devolving into something when people kind of lose sight of the fact that maybe it's not proving to be as useful as they thought it would be in the beginning?
Um, so I'm going to go ahead and group the rule following conformist to plan is a good intention. So I'm going to throw that in there just um, for knowledge. But I think that it always started out to be good. We started doing them in extreme programming. It was basically we decided how we were going to attack our day's problems. And we had stories that were names on cards. And we would say, well, here's what needs to be done. This is the most important thing. Who will pair with me on this story? How close are we? What problems do we have? What skills do we need to do this thing? So it was pretty useful and it was pretty quick, just naturally. I don't think I don't remember if we put a limit on it. Josh might be remembering. But they always were naturally short because we would just pair up pretty much is what we would do. And of course, update whatever the charts are. There's a thing that happens though, that people start to take on a process via vocabulary transformation. And it's the most natural thing in the world, right? I know what I'm doing. You come up with something different. Oh, that's the thing I've been doing. It's just a different name on the same idea. So, whereas in extreme programming, we had collaboration, which actually meant working together. Nowadays, collaboration is a meeting. It's when you stop working. Teaming is a thing we did with pair programming. Today, they think that teaming is when we assign work for each person to do. It's an odd picture. Where we had TDD, they have creating unit tests. And it's not the same thing. We had to get together and plan our day. Now people get together to report their progress. And where we had stories, they have tickets. And I think that naturally brought us to a place where if I have a team of 6 people, everybody doing something completely different, then that meeting loses value very quickly and it becomes a very hollow and empty thing to do. Basically, we each stand in a line or a circle, or we join a Zoom meeting and we say, I started on ticket 23,422. I have no blockers. And then we wait for the meeting to be over. Meanwhile, other people waited for their turn to give basically the same speech with different digits and then wait for the meeting to be over. I think it has devolved into pointlessness and uselessness.
I want to I want to expound on something that you said because it really I don't know lit something in my brain. You said collaboration is when we actually stop working. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. So, with XP and even before XP, people, we used to, in the 80s, even sit down together and work on stuff. We would have a couple people working on one screen. We would talk about the design. We would test it together. Collaboration to us always meant working together. In XP, it was working together. These days, people don't, that's so hard for people to consider because they're in a culture where efficiency is extracting the maximum amount of work from each individual. And you can't measure that and control that unless you have individual assignments and solo workers. So when you talk collaboration, to them, clearly that means that we have to stop working because we're going to all get together and talk. The idea that you actually achieve useful work simultaneously together on the same task is almost unthinkable to a lot of people. Is that what you see as well?
I think that's really interesting. I just want to remind the room if anyone wants to come up and ask a question or share a thought in regards to the topic, please do. Myself or Monique will just bring you up. Um, when you measure productivity, based on an individual's contribution, right, or an individual's progress on an individual task, is that something that is just the nature of the work, or is that how maybe leadership or management is looking at the work? What part of that is a requirement of the work, and what part of that is just kind of the culture of managing people?
I think that's a great question. I don't think it's a natural part of doing software. I think it probably is a natural part of wanting to measure individual contributions. If you do believe that a team is the sum of the contributions of the individuals and not some kind of a synergy between them, if you're looking at, you just add up the parts. You did 3 points, I did 3 points, that's 6 points. This team is a great 6-point team. Versus had we worked together, we might have completed 7 or 8 things, but you wouldn't be able to tell whose it was. So you want to manage the individual's position, hit their role success based on on guidelines, then you have to kind of ignore what does the best work because you're more important in what makes the easiest HR report. And that's legit too, right? I mean, people really want to have role success and they want to see, am I progressing? Who's my best programmer? They want to know those things, and those things do disappear in a team space. When you're doing ensemble programming, you can't separate the work of any individual from the work of the group. It's all the same. But it gets work done.
So in that case, right, where in ensemble work, you don't necessarily see the progress or the productivity of individual members, is the challenge that we need to accept the fact that sometimes individual work is the best way to measure people's progress or people's development? Or would you suggest that we look at different factors or different qualities of an employee or a team member to determine whether or not they should move up or be promoted in some form or fashion?
So the first thing is, I never said it was the best way. I said it was the easiest way. Sometimes our best ways are not our easiest ways. I think there's probably other factors we look at. For instance, if someone has shown a penchant, a capability for leadership, then that probably qualifies them for a more leadership position. Whereas if someone has shown a lot of skill in guiding other developers, maybe that's a different kind of a position, right, to move through. Probably peer respect is a lot of it. And knowing you, this would be an idea that you'd be interested in is when the informal power structure based on your influence as a person in a company doesn't match the official power structure, there tend to be a lot of problems. And I think that recognizing the informal structure in the process of developing people is probably way more important than measuring individual contribution. It might be the most prolific programmer is not the person who should become a team lead.
That's actually really interesting, and and I very much agree. How the best way to explore that, I'm not sure. Still working on it, but um, I like that thought. So, how do we kind of veering back towards where the conversation started? How do we start to wrangle these conversations in?
So hold on with the this conversations. Is this the daily meeting conversation or the HR conversation?
Oh, the daily meeting.
Okay. I'm not sure we need to. So, this was an insight I got from Josh once upon a time. We had some daily stand-ups. We experiment with everything, and we'll resurrect and drop practices here at Industrial Logic. And we were having a meeting with a bunch of people, and one of the people said, we need to get this over. It's been going already 17 minutes. It's over 15. We need to cut it down. And Josh said, hey, if we're making progress and making important decisions and it's going well, I don't care if it takes 45 minutes. And I thought, wow, how come I hadn't really thought about that way? Yeah, I think he's right. I think if you're really doing something, if it's going somewhere, I don't know why we would rein those in. Um, but then I remembered that while we were working together, in most teams, they're not. A lot of teams have individual assignments. So if Josh is talking to me about mine, Cecil is sitting there hostage in the meeting with nothing to say and nothing to contribute. And so I think, again, the daily meeting as a status meeting has become useless, and it just always has to be cut down to simple status reports because otherwise you'll bore the people who are not relevant to the conversation. And with individual assignments, one person plus their manager are usually relevant to the conversation and the rest are just waiting. And it's kind of useless.
Yeah, I was going to just say, this is Josh. Thanks for the topic and the kind of scatter. I think Tim, you call it scattered gather, and he wrote a
Mm-hmm.
blog about that, which is highly recommended. It's because scatter gather is where individuals do work alone and scatter off to the winds to do some work, and then you have to track what they did, and it leads to this kind of daily meeting, the way that's becomes a status meeting. At our company, first of all, we started calling it just a huddle, and the huddle does not have a very specific agenda. Um, we are sometimes someone's going to come to a huddle and say, "Boy, I had a terrible night's sleep." Oh, what happened? And you talk about that, right? There's no script. I mean, in general, you're there to just decide what you're going to be working on. Um, it's not so much a status meeting at all, right? It's also, Tim, you haven't talked too much about like demoing working software, but a lot of times it's like, I don't care what the tool says. Well, Jira ticket. What is the software doing? What can you show? There. So basically, working software again. It's in the manifesto, right? We want to see that during one of these little huddles, and it's not the purpose of the daily meeting necessarily. But for us, a huddle is typically a chance to decide what have we done, what do we need to do, what would be smart to do, and if it goes 45 minutes because we're thinking and talking and you know trying to decide what not to do, for example, so be it, right? It's not constrained that way. So just some extra thoughts on this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh.
Hey, Josh, thank you for joining. I had a question. So, to both of you, what would a good example look like for maybe a stand-up where people are talking about just the status update, and as compared to something which you would feel is a way of collaboration and a more productive daily meeting.
I wanted to see if Josh was going to jump ahead of me.
Oh, go
So
for it.
Josh's huddle idea, I think, is a lot of it. I mean, that's where you get some connection and you get direction. Sometimes when we get together, if we're not doing individual solo work, then we're going to talk about what our challenges are today and how we're going to tackle them, right? So maybe we're having some trouble with performance once we've added this new feature, and so we need a way to knock it down, and we're brainstorming some ways to do that. We might even be looking up articles while we're talking. Oh, it looks like if we change this indexing, maybe I'll look into the indexing. What don't you take a look? Maybe we need a full text search. Could we throw that into a Docker container and see what the performance is like on that? What would that take? What's our experiment to do next? Those are pretty productive, but it does kind of require that we're together on a task. And so what happens instead is once you get a bunch of individual assignments, they tend to be entered into a program. The program tends to assign numbers to them, and ticket numbers don't communicate. Most people couldn't tell you what any of the ticket numbers are except their own. So when they come into the status meeting, which is the daily meeting as you often see it, they come in with a ticket number that nobody else understands. Nobody could possibly help them or offer ideas. Any title would be better than a ticket number. We like role action context because it means something and it tells us what we're actually working on. But again, in the interest of being 15 minutes or less, I'm working on 2445. I worked on it yesterday. I'll be working on it tomorrow. I have no blockers. Please don't talk to me. Let me go back to my desk. Josh speaks a world of feelings in a single word. That is the most effective communication I've heard today.
Well, this term "no blockers" drives me insane because it's just like, it's exactly what Tim said earlier. It's leave me alone. I got to go back to work. But it's not the same as just collaboration that we talked about earlier. When you're in a meeting with a bunch of different people, it's an opportunity to collaborate. It's not meant to be you're not meant to be a prisoner in there listening to status updates. So it's really misdirected and a poor use of time to do it that way.
I think the mindset kind of comes from where, they already have so many meetings, going on because they have a lot of dependencies. So in order to mitigate those dependencies, they have to do a lot of meetings, and they are kind of fed up with all the meetings. I've been to into organizations where I hear they complain a lot of time that we have too many meetings, and so maybe they think of this as just another meeting. And as Tim already said, they're not working cross-functionally. They are not peering or mobbing on those user stories or tasks.
There's a lot to that, by the way. We talked about the scatter gather system. Scatter gather is um, you're going for maximum parallelism because you're trying to get the most out of each person, right? Um, so work tends to be pre-designed, which is like extra work, and sliced into pieces, which is extra work. And these partial dependent tasks are scattered out to a whole bunch of individual with a goal of keeping each person busy. Okay, now what's going on is anything that's related to any of the pieces that you've been working on, right? Every single ticket, no matter how big or small, that's in flight has your name on it, is a reason for you to be interrupted. Someone probably has to talk about it. There's a bug, merge problem, a review, right? So if I'm working with individual assignments, then I probably have something on the order of a couple dozen reasons for people to come and interrupt me or invite me to meetings or send me email or hit me up in Teams or Slack, right? High whip is the reason why we're interrupted all the time. But nobody wants to reduce that whip. Everybody wants to make sure we have solo, partial, dependent tasks that everybody's working on because that's, it looks efficient. Look how hard everybody's working, right? The list of active ticket numbers is work in progress, which, as we know, the more work in progress, the slower the throughput. And a lot of stand-ups are to express the tickets that are in progress. And a lot of the planning meetings are the same. This is how our industry is kind of falling apart.
So I'll give you a quick story. We were back in 2020, the pandemic hit, and then we said, we've got to redo our website. So we formed a small team, and we started doing a daily huddle. And the purpose was like we were incrementally changing the website. We weren't going to do it in one fell swoop, just change a page at a time, and keep evolving. And so we'd meet every day in the huddle. And it might have been scheduled for 30 minutes, but we didn't care if it went lower than that or more than that. But you've got a cross-functional team, and some people might be afraid to hear this, but we don't use a planning tool. We just talk to each other every day about what we're working on. And if someone says, "Hey, I need some help on this because it's gotten beyond my skill level," great. Okay, well, let's pair up after the meeting. Or by the way, Eva, our CSS expert, is going to be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so you can leverage her knowledge if you're having trouble. Or, hey, here's what I want to show you I made yesterday. Look, what do you think? It's just very different from a status meeting. And that daily communication, that the daily huddle really builds the team, is what people have told me, on the team, people that are even new to this type of work. We have people that are operations managers who are part of those huddles, learning how to write some web pages in Jekyll, this new static way of writing web pages, right? So they didn't know a thing about Jekyll. They were learning it, and the huddle was a chance to talk about how they were doing or where they needed help. Um, Very different from status meeting.
So I have a couple of more aspects that I want to bring in to the daily meeting, but before that, I would just like to uh, talk to the audience and see if anybody wants to, join the speaker panel and share their stories about the daily meeting. Or you can also comment under the space and and basically ask any questions or any feedback that you want to bring to the space. We would really love to know uh, what your experiences are regarding the daily meeting. So one other thing that I have experienced during these daily meetings is the importance of visualizations through radiators or some sort of physical boards. How important that plays a part, and any of you could answer that.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll second what Joshua said about looking at the actual running code is one of the best visualizations you can have of progress. But then I think someone else was beginning to speak, so I'll be quiet.
No, I don't think anybody was speaking. So please keep
Oh,
going.
okay. Yeah.
And we might have people in the audience who are not exactly, from the development side of things, and they might be from other industries. And if they want to understand, the from their point of view, how would you take a general take on it? Can anybody hear him?
Did we lose Tim's audio?
Yeah, I think we lost him. So Josh, would you like to talk about what I was referring to?
Yeah, can you say it one more time?
Yeah, so I was talking about visualization because
Hmm.
through Kanban boards or similar radiators, what the part or how important that is in order to collaborate during these daily meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think people do find those tools to be useful in general to visualize, what's in flight or what's hasn't started or what's maybe done or awaiting approval. So the visualizations like that are, in some sense, they are the status of the work in process or the work completed or the work yet to be started. It's in many respects like, again, coming back to what a huddle could be. It's more of a chance to think and collaborate and work, like decide stuff together rather than just do status reports, because a good visualization like you're mentioning, Muni, already communicates a lot of that stuff. So I think they're useful, but the to me, and we've experimented without even using them at all, because there is work to maintain one of those you know information radiators. At times we've tried to go as ultra lean, like what could we get rid of and still build great software. And you know I'm not saying don't ever use a tool, but we've discovered on smaller efforts it's actually not always necessary to have that visualization if you can see the working software and talk about it. um, it's very individual or specific to each team what they want to show. uh, and it doesn't matter if you're distributed. If you're having a huddle and it's a distributed huddle, you can have a visualization of your work or not. um, Again, coming back to the working software, to me, that's the ultimate visualization. It shows what's working and what isn't. So I think it's useful to have the visualization. It could probably speed things up because you can look at it in a glance. And I believe Tim is back, so maybe I can pass the baton to him.
I see him in listeners. Jay, can you see him?
Yeah, I tried to invite him up as a speaker. I'm not sure if my request is going through.
Yeah, I reached out to him on Slack, so maybe he lost signals or something. I don't, not sure, but we have a We have a question in the comments. It's Adnan from joining us from Melbourne. He's saying, how does one improve the daily meeting without first changing what leads to it becoming a status meeting? Is there change that can sprout from the daily meeting outwards?
So without changing what the lead is doing, I might need more clarification.
What leads it to becoming a status
Oh,
meeting?
sorry. Micromanagement?
Yeah, I think that also kind of brings in my second question that I had is around, psych safety. Are people uh, feel safe enough to share uh, the true story and because when they're working in silos and they have sort of lack of psychological safety, then they might not be able to share what they really want to share.
Yeah. I mean, what is you know, the audience? I'm curious what the audience has to say about this in terms of your experience with this. Do you feel like it's, how could you break away from it? Or is it impossible to change because people say, well, that's what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be this way. There's no way around it.
Yeah, we would love to hear from the audience. So I have actually went ahead and invited a few people. I see Fazaro, you're in the space. There's some other names that I'm seeing. So if you guys really want to share something on the topic, please go ahead and there's a microphone icon on the left bottom corner. If you just click that, you should be able to join us on the speaker. Okay, so we have Adnan joining us. Thank you, Adnan, for that question. And what would you like to share?
Hi, good morning. Hi, everyone. Well, it's morning here in Melbourne. Um, I just wanted to say that it's very interesting to me. My experience been that whenever we try to change something in the daily meeting, so the teams that I've worked with, I've tried to explain that what we do when I go there and I start joining that team. The practice there is basically the same that you've explained. It's a status meeting. Everybody's talking about some Jira card or Rally card or something, and they're just saying no blockers or and yeah, I mean it's considered a big goal to finish in 15 minutes, but I'm thinking there is maybe a lot upstream of that, and uh, you can't just fix the daily meeting without making some changes other places. For example, not working on stories, breaking down things in tasks, things getting assigned. I see a lot of visualization on the board, but what that looks like to me is that there is an active column with some dev's name on it on the tickets, and then there is a ready to start column with more tickets with the same dev's name. So I'm 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 really considering, is there something that we can start doing within the daily meeting that then sparks the change from inside out, rather than having to make a lot of changes outside to fix the daily meeting, in case we don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah, my answer to that would be, is the team willing to experiment? Like, you hear about companies that say we're going to go for a week with no meetings, and see what that's like. Even big corporations. Ford Motor Company did this. I think, did I get that right, Jay or Munib? Didn't they do an experiment at one point with like no meetings? Was it?
Yeah, I don't actually remember anything like that. I remember when I was there, they used to have this big huddle, like the whole floor, at least, 30 to 40 people, even more. They would gather in the morning and They would talk about the things the teams were doing. Somebody new would represent from each team, and then they would talk about it. Hey,
Yeah.
Tim, you're back.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for being patient. I didn't even realize I was gone. I had talked for another 3 minutes.
Well, just to finish the thought, the reason I asked about the Ford scenario there of them saying, let's try something, let's try not having meetings for a week, is that if you're constantly experimenting with your own process, you may discover ways to work better. So Adnan, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, perhaps, is to say, what could we as a team try? What are some experiments we could try to see if we could perhaps have a better, something we enjoy more, a process we enjoy more? You could ask, are people enjoying this status meeting, this daily stamp meeting? Maybe they say no. Well, would you be open for experimenting with something else? To try some new experiments. I think if you are constantly experimenting and tinkering with your process, hopefully you'll get better results. And if not, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and if you try the extreme, like no meetings, why don't try only meetings for a week?
Love that.
That's funny. Well, that's how I see a lot of people, their calendars. When I look at their calendars, I'm trying to, find this 30-minute slot throughout the week, and their, whole calendars are filled up with meetings. So there's definitely that happening as well.
Adnan, there's also something you said that made me think of something Tim said earlier when he was talking about the nature of the work, right? Like it usually, in it being used as a status meeting, someone's talking about an individual piece of work that they're doing and, basically informing the manager, and other people are waiting for their turn in line to say it. And you said something to the effect of, well, maybe there are other things we can do around the meeting that could make the meeting more impactful and more effective. And I was wondering, and Tim, this question is kind of directed towards you. What are the ways in which teams can start to transform how they approach work, how they assign work, how they break work down to make it more collaborative, and in that sense, make the stand-ups more of a collaborative experience as well?
So I find that it's actually easier for the people managing the group, and that makes it hard for them because it feels like letting go of things. If instead of dividing the work among 5 people, try bringing the 5 people together to do the work. You have a team of 10. Okay, well, 5 people are working on one thing. Oh, that can't be good. Oh, no, it's incredibly good. It's okay. You could do that. Right. And you have another task. Maybe it's worth 2 people. Well, that's a first step. The second step is let the people choose. Right. Here's a task that needs to be done. Who wants to work on that? And maybe 2 people want to do it because they're really good at that, and another person wants to join in because they really want to learn it. Right. And as long as you're turning the work around, getting it finished, really done, and out to customers frequently, it's really not much of a problem that somebody decided to make themselves the third person so they can learn how to do this thing. You'll find it develops people. But if they're going to talk together, it's going to be because they're working together, right? And I know that a lot of people have tried to do trust falls and ropes courses to build team rapport, and then the people come in to work and they're all given individual jobs, and it's like, well, that was kind of a waste. We'll talk about something because we're doing it together.
I like that. Gregor, did you have something that you wanted to add? I saw that you unmuted a little bit ago.
Um, I work with a bunch of teams. Some of them do daily meetings. I don't join them I don't see much value in them. Most of the value I see is when I work together with them in a team, like on the same problem. This is like the most valuable thing I have, or the most valuable time I have over all the other meetings I have. So I don't know if it's a good thing to have like a fixed time where everybody gets to meet, just because of it, just because it's a time frame. I would rather see something like that as a demand driven thing. If you want to meet, do it because you have demand. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
That's something I also wanted to ask about. I like the point that you made, Gregor. Like maybe it should be instead of it being very so rigorous or set or defined, let it be based on demand. Is there a certain level of like maturity that the team or members of the team need to have in order for that to be effective? Because I know I've been in environments where
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah. For example, working in a way where they are interruptible helps. So when you ask them, "Oh, can we meet?" and they can say like, "Yeah, I'm ready in 10 minutes." That's a good thing. I mean, or if I say no, not right now, I need 2 hours. That's maybe not that good. So how can you work in a way where you are interruptible and you can talk on demand?
Have you been reading our blogs? I just feel like you've been reading our blogs and you're pointing us right to them. Thank you for that. There is a very interesting couple of blogs out there. I just posted some links. But if you go to blog.industriallogic.com, you'll see there's a thing called Work to be Interruptible. And Perry Reed and I wrote that one together. And it covers the idea of the lost context thing that happens when you work entirely in your head. And we offer a number of ways that people can work to be safely, harmlessly interruptible, since I think interruptions are part of the landscape anyhow. No one has it in their employment contract that they're going to have 6 uninterrupted hours of work per day. So, knowing that it's going to happen, how do we deal with the problem of context? And one of the ways that we list in the blog is working with other people. So the context is not in my head, it's in our heads. And that's a powerful way to be interruptible. And of course, the other I already mentioned is the lower your whip, the lower the reasons for people, the fewer the reasons for people to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say as well. If you're gonna be interruptible every 10 minutes or be ready in 10 minutes, then your whip needs to be low as well. I see Perry in our audience as well. Perry, thank you for joining. Tim just mentioned you. I've posted a few links on top of the space for those of you who can see them, because I know on some devices they're not viewable, maybe due to a glitch or something else. But if you can see them, you can go to these blogs, and if you want to read more about the daily meeting or how to be interruptible, then you can go read those blogs on the Industrial Logic's website. And uh, so, Perry, thank you for joining. Would you like to add something?
Sorry, did you ask me?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
No, right now I don't have anything to add. I will
Oh,
put my hands up again if I have something. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Actually, I was talking to Perry. He just joined us, the speaker
ah,
panel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perry
Hey,
Reed,
Perry.
co-author.
Yes, indeed. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, super. Yeah, I love this topic because a lot of what I see in teams who that do the daily stand up in the way that was originally described by Tim, where everybody takes a turn saying, I'm working on ticket, 1, 2, 3, 4, no blockers. I'll be, working on it the rest of the day. it really is useless information because, as Manib said earlier, if you have visualized the work and you're using something like a Kanban board, I've not said anything that can't be seen by the presence of that card in the in progress status. Maybe the only thing that I've added is I'm not blocked. But, in that regard, I think that is completely a waste of time. The other thing that was mentioned, I'm not sure if this has been mentioned or not, but where we have experimented with mob programming or ensemble programming, where literally the whole team is actively collaborating, working together, a stand up is absolutely a complete waste of time. There's absolutely no reason for us all to stop what we're doing to get up and talk about what we all know we're working on right now. So those have been some interesting experiments that we've done at IL that I think is really interesting, and I find it has been a much more effective way of working. Tim mentioned the blog. I think Josh mentioned it too about the scatter gather model for working, and it just consistently comes back as being a really poor way to get stuff done. It's a great way to keep people busy and really maximizing sort of the utilization of people, but not really maximizing the throughput of value. And so it's interesting to see these things and how they're related to something really as core as the daily stand-up is to what most people think of being agile. And so yeah, it's fun to experiment with different ways and try to find a better way of doing it.
Okay, so we have another question from the audience. The question is there data to support the argument for not assigning tasks to individual team members?
So I'm not a researcher. I know that there have been studies with mob programming and there have been studies with pair programming. I don't really know, but let me share a thing that I have observed, which is not as good. I know it's not what you're looking for. If everyone has an assignment and we put out one more assignment with no name on it, the unassigned task will not get done because everybody has their own work, right? So if I'm on the hook for 3 tickets and there's a 4th ticket out there I could take, I'm going to finish my 3. I might not even finish that work by the end of our span. I don't know if you're working with iterations or sprints or anything. If you are, or until the next time I'm assigned something, right? I'm going to do the work that has my name attached because that's how I succeed in my role. I don't pick up unassigned work. Now, let's go the other way. What if nothing is assigned to individuals and a team works together and you hand the team, here are 3 things that have to be done? Typically, all of those will get done because I don't have to choose between doing my work or doing your work or doing some extra work anymore. So again, I don't know if there are studies, maybe Josh or Perry know. Anyone?
I think, Perry, you have mentioned the Parkinson's law a few times when we were working together, which says work expands to fill the time. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that, Perry?
Yeah, I've seen that quite often and working with various teams that if you give somebody a week to do the work, it very seldom comes in earlier than that. But what I find interesting is, as Tim was saying, when the work is in a queue and people have not already pre-allocated or pre-assigned the work, then when people are done and they are given the opportunity to volunteer to get the next thing, there can be an implicit ordering or prioritization of whatever work is still in the queue in the backlog, so that you're always assured that the most important thing gets picked up. If you pre-allocate the work and then something more important comes in, then it's highly likely it is going to sit there, as Tim said, because everybody's busy. They're already working on stuff, and sometimes they've already pre-assigned more than what I can actually do. So I've got my own little personal backlog that I'm trying to manage. So it's been in my experience working with lots of teams that having people volunteer for work rather than pre-allocating it is best, because it ensures that there's at least this small gap between when the work comes in and somebody picks it up, where you can prioritize that work and make sure that the most important thing is being addressed.
I've gone so far as to give a name to it. When you give people individual assignments, I call that unteaming. So you've unteamed everybody. You've given each person their own assignment. Now, for anyone to work to help anyone else is going to put their own work at risk. And so you're going to get less collaboration. You have essentially effectively eliminated any chance of them working together.
Yeah, and going back to the metrics question, the thing about metrics is it's very hard in a nope, be quiet. It's very hard in an ecosystem where you can deliver something that's complete crap. You've got it in on the deadline, but the next 3 to 4 months is just hell hardening it and dealing with maintenance problems and defects and all kinds of crap. This happens all the time. So it's like, what are the metrics looking at? How much you accomplished by some date versus if you didn't do individual assignments. But then how does that look at quality? Because we know quality can be, if it's not there, it can be very expensive. I mean, it can cost as much as the development of the thing to actually deal with the repercussions of poor quality. So, it would be great to have the data like this, to prove, that ensemble work, teaming work is better than, scatter gather, as we call it. But I think it's it's harder to quantify if you're not looking at what we care about in software development. And we care about delivering value and making sure the quality is the right level for our intended audience.
There's also a complicating problem with metrics. Typically in your scatter gather shop, there's also phase gates, right? If a person works alone, they probably have 40% of the skills it takes to deliver something completely to production. And they probably know less than 10% of the total system they're working in. They're going to make mistakes. So you work alone, then you have a code review and a testing phase and a whole bunch of gates, and they can all return work. Well, typically what you'll see is you have this really fast programmer who turns around 15 tickets every 3 days. And you're like, wow, this guy's amazing. Well, the first ticket was a development job and he turned it around really fast, and it came back from a code review to be fixed with a separate ticket not connected to the original. And he does that work. And then when he sends it on, it comes back from testing with 3 different tickets not associated to the original ticket. And he fixes all of those bugs and sends it back out, and it comes back again, and he does 2 more bugs, right? This person is turning around 15 tickets every 2 days, and it's less than 1 development job. Whereas when you tend to be working in an ensemble, you tend to be given a whole piece of work, and the whole team does that feature, and it goes live because it has no defects. It doesn't have knock-on effects people hadn't thought about. It's well tested, it's well written, and it goes live. Well, here's what happened. I did have a guy turning around 15 tickets every 2 days. Now I have a whole ensemble of people only turning around 1 ticket every 2 days. Obviously, the ensemble is not efficient, right?
Another thing that brings to mind, Tim, is what kind of learning is happening amongst the team during that ensemble work versus the solo work, right? I mean, if we're talking about quality, right? Quality of the end product, yes. What about also the people, in the team? and how are they growing and learning so that there aren't silos in the team that are risky. Like someone wins the lottery and they're the only ones that know the front end. Great, they're gone, and now what? So we find there's better risk, not only better quality, but better risk management when there's more teaming happening versus scatter gather.
I thought, and I may be a little surprised, I thought that the pandemic was going to turn that around because everybody now knows that any one of your people could be gone for weeks, days or weeks. Um, and it seems like, all the smart company would go, oh, we probably don't need silos. If I have one person gone and it stops the work, how do I possibly make progress? Well, the only obvious way is by teaming. So we have ensembles, one person's gone, the work continues. And it seems like that was such a no-brainer, but it seems like that's not what happened. One of our clients, reported that they had a big project and the person who was doing most of the work was out for 3 months. When they came back, it was exactly as they left it. It had stopped all forward progress for 3 months. Who wants to do that?
Amazing conversation. Okay, so we are coming to an end for the allotted time for this Twitter space. I want to thank everybody who joined today. And we are going to be doing this every Friday at 2 p.m. Central. Every week we're gonna be coming up with new topics around agility. So please follow the host, the co-host, and we will schedule the Twitter space, and we will let you know what topic we are coming up with. And we'll definitely keep in touch. I'll hand it over to you, Jay, for the last comments.
Perfect. Thanks, Manif. I think you did a great job. Thank you, Tim, for hosting the space today and leading this topic. Hopefully, everyone that joined has a few more ideas or insights and ways that they can take away and make useful in their own environments. Thanks to everyone who joined the stage. So, Josh, Gregor, Perry, Adnan, thank you for coming up and joining the conversation. All your questions and comments were super insightful. Like Manif said, we'll be back here every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, having conversations about different topics around agility and development. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please share your experience, recommend it to others. We hope to see you back again. Have a great and safe weekend. And yeah, if there are ever any topics that you would like to hear us talk about or that you would like to join and discuss, feel free to DM any one of us, and we will be sure to put that in the rotation. So thanks, everyone.